Hello, I'm Hunter Wood at the Athletes Lounge podcast, and I'm here with my guest.
Nevin Ashely.
So, so Nevin, the was professional baseball always the goal, or is this something you just kind of stumble into being good at?
Well, I don't think I was ever really good at it. I had to work a lot at it, but I my mom actually found some old yearbooks like kindergarten, first grade, and it was like I wanted to be a firefighter, an astronaut, and then I think it was second grade on. It always said professional baseball player. And once I got to high school, college, I realized I was a little bit better than average, and never thought a career out of it was going to happen, but I loved it. So that's where I put most of my time and effort. And here we are. I'm still doing it today.
So, were there any players, I guess, that like did you watch baseball as a kid?
Oh yeah, I grew up a big Braves fan. TBS coming home from school, getting watched, in the '90s,
So,
perfect time.
John Smoltz.
So yeah, Smoltzy, Chipper Jones is I got my Chipper Jones jersey right there that my parents just got framed for me. So I was a big Chipper fan. Just baseball was my life.
So, you went to college baseball, not too, you played college baseball not too far away from home. Because
Yeah,
ISU because ISU is pretty close to where you're from.
yeah. I went to Indiana State. I grew up just north of Vincennes. I went to North Knox High School. Had a few options in college, but decided to go to Indiana State. I got mostly an academic scholarship, so having an older brother and older sister definitely helped out. So went to Indiana State, and it's not it wasn't like it's not like Indiana State now. It was a great place for me. I was able to get in there and play a little bit my freshman year, and then end up winning the catching job at the end of my freshman year. And biggest thing for me, I just wanted to play.
Yeah. What was your you ended up playing a long time. Well, first up, did you have any expectation of getting drafted?
Oh, I was so green. I was. I mean, they started talking to me towards the end of my junior year, and I knew it could have been an option. I didn't think I didn't even know when the draft was happening. I remember the day of the draft. I was up in Wisconsin playing in the Northwoods League. I went to some I don't know what it was, like a coffee shop, to get online and kind of watch it. Well, it didn't even start at that time, and so I had really had no clue. And then I went to the field, and I was taking early batting practice and hitting, and then someone ran and got me, and gave me my phone, and it was the Tampa Bay Rays that were calling, congratulating. I'm like, guy James Benici, the scout, said congratulations, and I'm like, for what? What just happened? He's like, are you not watching? I'm like, no. I'm actually getting ready to take a batting practice, getting ready to play a game. He's like, well, don't play. I'm like, I want to play. So no, that's how it happened.
Well, well, so I guess you're because 6th round pick's a decent investment and a prospect. Because they
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I really didn't understand it. But then when we started the process of, actually negotiating signing bonus and figuring that part out, I realized quickly. And then the calls come in from different agents and advisors. I realized that it was pretty good. So I was able to sign a couple weeks later, and get my professional career started, and never look back.
so you ended up playing for a lot of different organizations, or at least had a lot of different affiliates. Is there
Mhm.
a I don't want to say quality difference because they all just do things differently. Is there a difference from place to place, like a noticeable difference, or is it just you're still playing baseball just in a different location?
Um, well, in between the white lines, it's still the same game.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's a huge difference. There's organizations that put more of a perspective on the analytics, and the analytics was like throughout my career were starting to become more and more like relevant. Then there were some organizations that ran more of old school military esque type um, atmosphere. And I had some really good organizations. There's organizations that I played for that we didn't really see eye to eye. But I was very fortunate to be able to play for, I think, 7, maybe 8 different organizations. It wasn't because I was getting released or letting go, is because I felt like for my career there was better options somewhere else.
How was Round Rock?
I spent a week there,
Yeah, I
so
saw it wasn't a long stay, but I'm a Ranger fan, so I just kind of
yeah,
have to.
I loved it. I left the Mets organization, had an okay year. It was one of those years that, once you drop out of prospect status, and I was older, you had to earn everything again. And I that's the part I loved. I loved, winning a job and being able to compete. And I was able to do that. And then, that's where the business stuff comes in. And, well, this guy has to play, and we're invested in, this kid. So like that's the part of the game that a lot of people don't see. And I was fortunate enough to get traded over. It was more of like an insurance policy for them if someone were to get hurt and they were going to the playoffs. So it was fun. I loved it. It was hot, but it was short lived.
Uh, so you did make it to the show,
Yeah, I
and
got a cup of coffee.
yeah, well, your first at bat's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I didn't show a whole lot of excitement whenever I got the call that I was going up, and the reason why is because in 2010 I was called up with the Tampa Bay Rays to be like a reserve on the playoff team. Never activated, so it never showed. But I was in the dugout through the playoffs against the Rangers. We went to 5 games, so you get Rangers beat us.
40-man roster, right?
Oh, it was no. This was just you have your 25 man
Yeah.
and you have reserves in case an injury happened. So I was basically the reserve catcher if one of the other 2 catchers got hurt. Then in 2014, when I was in Indianapolis playing with Pittsburgh organization, I got called up to Yankee Stadium. It was a doubleheader there. I flew my wife there, had a locker all set up, ready to go. And then, the catcher that was injured the day before, they decided to give it a go, and he ended up playing through it. And I sat there in the clubhouse for about 5 hours and then flew back to AAA. So it was a moment that I loved because it was actually Jeter's last year. My wife got to see him play in Yankee Stadium. I did not because I couldn't even go to the dugout. But then, when it happened with the Brewers, I was excited to call my parents, but I wasn't going to show that excitement until I actually heard my name called and I was going to the, in the game.
So when you're at the plate, are you like, well, this is cool?
Well, it wasn't much difference because I was in Miami and there's probably about 6,000 fans there. So, it wasn't this huge atmosphere, but it was pretty awesome. Once the game started, it was it's a game.
Yeah.
It's what I've been doing. So, but before that moment, and whenever I was able to actually have my mind focus on how cool this moment was, it was pretty emotional because I think 31 at the time. I'd spent 10 years in the minors. It was a grind. There's times that I contemplated hanging up and not, and stopping. And luckily my wife pushed me through that. And, not very many people have been able to say that they played at that level. And, if it wasn't for that support system, my family and everybody, then I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity. So I was grateful for that. And, I definitely soaked it in.
So do you remember who you hit off of?
Tom Kohler.
Okay, I didn't know if it was just going to randomly be like Jose Fernandez, and then that was going to be like,
It was Tom Kohler. I remember he. I faced him before in spring training. I faced a lot of the guys because in major league spring training, I was there being a catcher because you can't have enough catchers. So
yeah.
I was face a lot of guys quite often, and I knew he had a really good curveball. So I was trying to jump on that fastball as quick as I could. So I was able to get one, and I really don't remember much after that.
So who did you I guess catch for in your stay in Milwaukee?
K Rod was there. He was a closer there. Zach Davies was kind of the pitcher that I caught the most. Ariel Pena, he was a rookie at the time. I caught him quite a bit. So some of the guys that came up from AAA that I played with and was familiar with were the guys that I caught. Um, Matt Garza was there. Loesch was there. So we had a veteran group, but it was we weren't we didn't have the best year that year. So in hindsight, looking back, it's probably a blessing in disguise because that was one of the main reasons why I was called up, because it was giving guys opportunity to showcase and play, and when we were out of the hunt.
So is there anyone that stood out to you, or maybe just because you're still friends with them, of like who was a really good teammate, or even anyone that was just so good when you were playing with them, where you're like, well, that guy's gonna be good.
Yeah, there's I mean, I have a lot of friends in the game I still contact. I mean, two of them were I was in their wedding and they were in mine. Stephen Vogt, and the funny thing is we're all catchers, so we grew pretty close. We pushed each other. Craig Albernaz is the other one. He's a bullpen coach and catching coach for the San Francisco Giants. Stephen Vogt just retired last year. Now he's a quality control coach for the Mariners. So those two guys, we've always been really close. There's a handful of players that I really, really looked up to, enjoyed playing with. When you get done playing and you look back at what was special about it's usually the guys, the time you spend with individuals, getting to know them, getting to know their families, and that's the part of the game that's missed the most, is just that clubhouse camaraderie. And it's we still stay in touch, so it's good. I go out there sometimes and we do catching camps, and hopefully someday I can get them in here to run some camps with me. So
So you were a bullpen catcher for the Toronto, right?
yes, I was.
So how does that one even, I guess, even happen? Do they approach you? Do they?
Well, that was it was kind of it was definitely different. Like, so in 2017 was my last year playing. I was with the Seattle Mariners in big league camp. I got hit with a backswing and I suffered a concussion. It was it put me out for that whole year, and then I actually suffered from that concussion for almost 2 years. I wasn't able to work. I wasn't able to read books, learn. My vision was messed up. I had to go through everything, and it was, the era that I came up, concussions were a thing, but like I was always fighting for a job. So if I got my bell rung, I kind of just like shook it off and like next pitch. Well, when you don't take care of that concussion, the next one, when you get it, it's a little bit worse. So that one debilitated me for a while. And so 17 and 18, my focus was just getting healthy, getting to where I was able to function on a normal basis. And that's where the Ashely Academy kind of derived from. So I started just doing lessons and just trying to get better, because that's what I knew and that's what I could do. And then I remember flying out to Seattle to Stephen Boats, and we did a catching camp, and they were really pushing me to get back in the game, and I was just, I don't know. And then on the way home, I remember my wife and I prayed about it after we landed in Louisville, and literally 5 minutes later, I got a call from the Toronto Blue Jays, and they wanted to interview me for the bullpen catching job. And I think 5 days later, I was shipping out to Florida.
So what all does I guess the bullpen catcher do? Obviously, there's some things that are obvious in the job title, but
Yeah.
what all did they do?
Bullpen catcher, I guess the job, catch bullpens, throw with pitchers, just be available. Now, most teams all have two bullpen catchers. We had a guy that's been there for a while, and he would make sure the fields were set up. He'd work with the clubhouse managers to make sure everything was in place. My role as a bullpen catcher was, obviously catch bullpens, throw with pitchers, but I also worked with the catchers. I was in all the coaches meetings. I was kind of getting groomed to be more of a coach in my first year, and then after spring training, helping out with catchers. John Schneider, who's the current manager, he was the catching coach at the time, and we worked together hand in hand. And then the next year, he was like, "Hey, you take the catchers. This is, obviously you're really good at it. My title was still bullpen catcher, but I did all the catching stuff for the big leagues, and then the following year I was kind of doing that plus taking care of all the minor league stuff."
So bouncing back a little bit, you played in Indianapolis,
Yes.
which might be the biggest city without a big league team. I'm not sure about that. I just feel like off the top of my head, they might be
Yeah, they could be. I mean,
top two or three for sure.
yeah, I mean, I think I played in every stadium out there. I played in the IL, the PCL, um, and I think most of my career was in AAA, so I was able to bounce back and forth and make a long run at it.
Which I was going to say, triple A facilities get a lot nicer compared to rookie ball.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you're coming up, it's a grind, but you're young and that's what you do. But when I think double A is when I got married and my son was born when I was in triple A. So, it makes life a lot easier when you're able to, be in better places, safer places for your family and stuff like that.
And nice part about triple A is a lot of those cities are a little bit bigger cities, or they're a little bit more more available stuff and bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my first stint, I was in Durham for about 2.5 years, and then from there, I played in Louisville. My first son was just born, so I actually commuted back and forth from Evansville to Louisville when I played there. That was a grind, but it was fun. And then played in Indianapolis, stayed up there, and then Colorado Springs, um, Las Vegas, Round Rock, and then that last year didn't make it out of spring training. So
Vegas is probably the biggest city, I guess, without a big league team. I kind of forgot they didn't have one.
yeah, it was.
I guess they do now.
Yeah, it was. It was fun playing in Vegas. It's a little bit more fun when you're on the road, just because you can go in there for 3 or 4 nights and then be gone. But like living there was everybody that flew in was it was vacation for them. And that was probably the hardest part. Like is when people came in, they're on vacation. Well, I'm not. Like this is my job. This is what I do. I got a game the next day. I got to prepare. I can't stay out all night, or even if we do have a day game, we're probably right back at it the next day. So that was probably the hardest part, especially being closer to home in like Indianapolis and Louisville. A lot of family and friends come on around, and to them it was they're going to watch a ball game and let's go do this, let's go do that. Well, I'm going to work and I got to get ready for the next day because we got a game tomorrow.
So you told me how you decide to start Ashley Academy because but I guess not what you do because that's a broad question, but tell us what you're really proud of about Ashley Academy and like what I guess services you provide and things like that.
Yeah, Ashley Academy, like I said, derived like it started one cage, and it was me just trying to get healthy from my concussion, and then quickly realized that there was this need, and I've always wanted. I've gave lessons, I've helped kids in the community, but I quickly realized that there was a need for the knowledge and the experience that I had. I was still kind of like in the baseball mindset, like I needed to be in affiliation. So that's whenever like I brought in my partner, Cody Gilbert, and after I brought him in to like start kind of shadowing and doing lessons, 2 days later is when I left for the Toronto job. And I kind of just, hey, bud, like you keep this going, like we'll be partners. And he did an awesome job. He kept it going, and it's grown since then. And the biggest thing around here is like I left in 21. I left, a great job. I was moving up in coaching, and but at the same time, I find just as much pleasure in coaching the youth in this area than and being around, especially being around for my kids and my family, than traveling around from major league city to major league city. There's parts of that lifestyle that is glamorous and it's awesome, but it's a struggle, especially when 2 years of that time was during COVID, when you're locked up and you can't really do much. So, but Ashley Academy, is what I do now. We provide lessons, we provide camps, clinics, programs. We brought in sports performance, really just trying to help this area's youth in all aspects of whatever game it is to reach the level that they want to compete at. Looking back, if I was able to have the opportunity to work with certain individuals, like I think I would have had a little bit of a head start in my career. Those things weren't readily available. So I'm just trying to provide a service because I have the knowledge, I have the experience, and know what it takes to get to the highest level. And yes, it is one sport, but I think you can translate that to any sport, like what it takes and what you need to do to accomplish this. And then if they don't make it, that's fine, because it's going to translate into regular life as well. I think the biggest thing is providing an atmosphere and a culture that builds confidence, but also teaches kids failure and how to handle failure and what happens when you do fail and what you can do to learn from it and move forward.
So, are there any you faced yeah, a lot of big leaguers came through your time in AAA, I'm sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, are there any that you caught for, or are there any that you faced at the plate that you were I guess it's cool in hindsight to say you played against?
I mean, yeah, I've I was able to play against and with a lot. I played with I caught David Price his first year coming through pro ball, and then again in in spring training and stuff like that. Steven Strasburg's first professional outings in the Arizona Fall League. Was able to play against Buster Posey. I remember when the Cincinnati Reds were trying to make Aroldis Chapman a starter. I was the guinea pig that was behind the plate trying to catch it, which was not fun. He had no clue where the ball was going at that time, especially on his slider and his splitter. But then again, I remember in the big leagues facing him, facing 103 and with a nasty slider. So uh, baseball allowed me to be around and compete against some of the very best, and I was very fortunate for that.
The I'm sure how big of a jump do you think the average AAA pitcher is to the average big league pitcher?
It's a big jump. I mean, you think about if you're in AAA and there's that one guy that just goes out there and dominates. He's probably your 3, 4, 5 pitcher in the big leagues. Um, you know, Now you do have the ones that end up being, they're who they build the pitching staff around. Usually they don't spend much time in AAA. They'll throw a couple stars and get right up to the big leagues. But it's a significant difference. The margin of error is dramatically less. The stuff, their how good their stuff really is. It's different.
So, how was there ever were you ever in a game because some guys can sit down the rehab assignments, and you'll have random Bryce Harper AA games. Did you ever play in one of those where someone like that gets sent down and it's just a lights out game for him?
Uh, no. I
Oh,
mean, I was able to play in a lot of those games, but usually the competitive factor, I mean, it's ingrained in all of us to go out there and compete, but when it's a rehab assignment, I feel like staying healthy and going out there and just doing what you're supposed to do, like meeting a quota of, hey, I need to reach this many pitches or throw this many innings, is more of the focus than going out there and just competing.
because
So, it is a difference whenever they come down. Now, some guys go out there position player wise, and they just don't know how to turn that off, and they just go compete. And usually those are the guys that they don't spend you know, very long in those rehab assignments. They get called right back up. So
and usually those guys play what, 1 or 2 games at the max down there. It's just
just depends on what injury they're coming off of. If it's a long injury, they had to build up. But yeah, it's usually not very long.
so you made it to the show and then got sent back down. But and were you a call up? Were you a call up because of injuries, or why were
I
or
was
were
a call up. So we finished our season. I got called up in September, which, looking back, I'm glad it was then because now they don't have it.
yeah?
So, I was a September call up. Um, I had a really good year that year. It's probably one of my best offensive years. I was able to catch, I think, around 90 games. So I caught the majority of the games. So it was, I earned it. But at the same time, it wasn't where we were in a competitive atmosphere. We knew that we weren't making the playoffs. They were just trying to kind of prepare. After that season, I got let go. We had new management. That's when David Stearns came in from the Astros, more analytical, and I just didn't fit that, fit the mold there. Like I was older catcher, and there was, they were looking to add youth, and that's why I ended up signing with the Mets the next year.
So I guess was a lot of times guys end up in the back down in affiliates after they've been all stars. I'll use Johnny Cueto as as an example. Were you ever around any guy like that? That was like a legit big league starter for several years, then got sent back down.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when I was in Louisville, I mean, I was playing with Galarraga, or not Galarraga, but I'm drawing a blank. The guy threw the would have been a perfect game, but Jim Joyce screwed up
Oh,
the.
oh no.
Um,
I now know who you're talking about. The
oh goodness,
and
yes, I was able to play with him. I actually caught Mark Pryor's very last pitch ever as a professional. That was really cool. I mean, it was unfortunate for him. He hurt his shoulder again, but at the same time, like I was catching him in Indianapolis, and it was, he had an unbelievable career. Unfortunately, it was plagued by injury, and he was trying to make a second run at it, and just it didn't happen.
and that happens a lot. I think Dexter Fowler's done that recently, I think, where he's and I guess I'm sure there's a mix, but are there mentalities to get back to the bigs? Are they a little bit disgruntled, or a lot of those guys have some injury that happens, what's the reason they're back down there? But
Yeah, I think it's more of, they didn't go out the way they wanted to. When you've had a really successful career and you're a big leaguer or whatever it is, and an injury happens where it kind of like, you know, ends it for you. Like a lot of players, want that comeback, want to prove to themselves that their career didn't end because of an injury. It was because they were able to walk away on their own terms. And I can relate to that a little bit. Like, I was juggling around whether stopping my career after 2016, and then I remember my wife saying, like, let's give it one more go, no matter what, one more shot. whatever happens, you're done after this year. And I'm like, okay. And so we did it. And God had different plans. He was like, well, I guess I got to take it away from you. You're going to have an injury. And I had to medically retire. And, I went through that process, but I don't regret it one bit. I don't regret going back for 1 year. The academy derived from it. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about the game of baseball and injuries and everything. So it was unfortunate, but I I'm here today because of that, and I think I'm a better human and better person.
Well, you also got to get all those autographs in the back because you got to hang around the big league club for a few years.
Like I said, my son, he's ate up with baseball, and he's fortunate enough to be around whenever I was still playing. And then when I was coaching and with the Blue Jays, he would call me, Dad, make sure you get this guy. Even if I didn't really like the guy, he'd be like, "Oh, get this guy's autograph." I'm like, really? Okay.
So
So
you had to be around the relievers a lot as the bullpen catcher, right?
yeah,
Are they really that weird?
yes, it's a blast. It was probably the best part about the job is sitting in the bullpen and listening and having arguments. I mean, there's a no holds bar about what is said in the bullpen, and then a flip of the switch. All right, guys, we got to focus. We got to go over. Some guys are a little bit more relaxed. The closers are usually the most different ones. Obviously, lefties, left-handed relievers are always out there a little bit, but it's a fun environment. That's that part of coaching, and getting around the guys, and just learning more about them and what makes them tick, and that's the part that I miss.
The well, I was gonna say, is there a demeanor difference between starting pitchers and relievers that's noticeable?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, starters, they're more routine focused because they know exactly when they're pitching and whatnot. Like relievers, it's a day to day grind. Unless they're down, and when they're down, they know it, and that's when they let loose a little bit. They'll bring snacks in the bullpen and stuff like that, and the topics get kind of off the wall, but um, they have to be engaged a lot more because you never know if you're going to get into that game or you're not going to get in that.
I was gonna say the only time a starting pitcher's ever used as a reliever is like a playoff game of insane importance, and that's rare.
It's very rare. I mean, those guys like a Madison Bumgarner, like what he did, that's a different breed.
I think Scherzer had it happen once. The
Yeah,
1 day's rest. Yeah,
those guys know that it might have been where 1 day rest. That's when he typically throws his bullpen. So hey, we can get one, maybe 2 innings out of this guy. Bumgarner going 4 innings is kind of unheard of. So
yeah, and 4 innings for a reliever in general is kind of. I mean, there's long relievers, but long relievers don't go four.
good luck going out there and telling that guy, "Hey, you're done. I'm going to take the ball out of your hands when the
Yeah,
game's on." I
yeah,
don't think that end well for anybody.
yeah. I think starting pitchers. One reason they may don't relieve even more, which I don't think they'll relieve them, especially now with the way they try to save arms. But it'd be really weird to tell like Verlander, yeah, you just pitched to and thanks for pitching the sixth and the seventh. Now we need this ball.
I mean, that's a status that people earn throughout their careers, and you got to remember most of the relievers um, were probably starters coming up in the minor leagues or drafted as starters. So, like, they understand.
Yeah, the and most guys that retain starting pitching status for that long are guys we just talked about, like guys like the Greinke level. They're kind of when you have Cy Youngs, you can you get used different ways. Uh,
Yep.
which I guess Lincecum they used as a reliever after his arm kind of went, but they were using. But that's because he could throw 101, 102 for 2 innings, and then they could pull him.
That's different. I mean, when you don't have to pace yourself through a game, like you can go out there and just let it eat. It's a different kind mentality, and it's a different kind of game. So, the ones that can make that adjustment, especially within the same year, not, being a starter and then relieving and then going back to starter, like it's pretty impressive.
So is Chapman the best arm talent you've ever caught for? Obviously, his control's always been kind of all over the place, but
It was the hardest. It was definitely the like I struggled the most, and it was because of the velocity. He's tall, long arms. The ball got on you, but like it was mainly because he had no clue like where the ball was going. I mean, when you throw that hard, you don't have to be pinpoint accurate. You just throw it in the vicinity and let the ball move. And that's kind of the way the game's going. You're seeing it with spin rates and stuff like that, where, right now you're throwing in quadrants. You're not like, if you're throwing a fastball, you're throwing in this upper quadrant. If you're throwing a curveball, it's mainly like, if it's a get me over, you're just trying to land it in the strike zone. If it's like a put out or a head in the count, you're trying to throw it here to break down out of the zone. So where the game, I think it'll eventually come back to, because pitchers are always ahead. I think eventually it'll go back to the accuracy part when hitters decide to catch up. And I think they're slowly going to start doing that. But then right when they start doing that, the pitchers are going to make another adjustment and it's going to be catch up.
so because of what's the weirdest pitch you ever caught? Like I know, like just like because some people have weird pitches,
Yeah.
and then
I mean,
some people work on pitches that just aren't ever going to work, and they are working on.
I think the probably one of the most difficult pitches was a Yoel Peralta split finger. And it wasn't because, I mean, he threw, he just had so, and it was before all the sticky stuff. He just had so much pine tar in the glove. Like I remember the first time I caught him, and I caught the ball and I went to throw it back and I threw it right straight in the ground. And then he threw it to me again and I threw it in the ground again. And he called me out. And he's like, Poppy, stop making it look so obvious. It's like, I cannot even hold this ball. It's sticking to my hand. And you can literally hear it like rip out of your hand. Like, in I eventually figured it out. And I'm like, I don't know how he throws it. And there, that's a reason why he had such a good split finger, because it had some nasty movement.
Well, because he's got unique stuff. I guess Chapman stuff is unique by pure force.
Yeah.
uh, ripping his arm out of his socket every time he throws the ball.
Yeah, he's one of the best arms, best closers. I mean, I know he's not having the success that he wants, but at the same time, like in his prime, he was one of the best.
He's fun to watch in Texas.
Yeah,
He's so fun to watch. Even and maybe it's because I was like, even when we were good, our bullpen was so kind of lackluster overall. But he's just like, oh well, maybe he can completely save an inning because he's so good. And
yeah.
and I'm sure he scares batters.
I mean, I remember I was rewatching a video. There was a stretch when I was in the big leagues, and I swear Craig Counsell did this just for just for fun. But there was a stretch where I pinch hit 3 games in a row, and I was the last out 3 games in a row, and I faced Rosenthal, who threw 99 with power sink. I think I struck out. Faced Chapman, 103 strikeout, and then the third day I faced Chapman again, and I grounded out. I was like, I'm not striking out this time, and I ended up grounding out. But like I remember he threw um, it was like a 94 mile per hour slider, and it was like at my back ankle, and I got out of the way, and I was like, oh man, that would hurt. And I was rewatching the film, and you think that you're fast enough to actually get out of the way of it, but the ball was actually behind me before I even moved. So like I got lucky. It just missed me.
The and I'm part of his pitches are he tries to paint the inside corner a lot, and I don't know really how much he cares if that clips someone.
I mean, that mentality as a closer, you got to have that. Like, well, all their job is just to finish the game and win it. Like, if they give up a home run, oh well. I mean, it's just to go out there and finish the game and get the win.
They're kind of cold blooded. Yeah, it's like when Edwin Diaz was so good last year. Everyone like started respecting closers again randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Closers, it's different now. The game's changed because now, like, the way you look at it is more of like high leverage situations, because the pivotal part of the game might be the eighth inning when the lineup is 2, 3, 4, and you might throw your best arm in that situation, but the last three outs, no matter what, are hard outs to get. I mean, that's why a closer, I think there's always going to be a closer. I know through free agency and stuff like that, people are looking more at like what high leverage situations. But the last three outs, it's a different beast, and the ones that are really good at it, kudos to them.
Because of the being a bullpen catcher, did I guess who are some of the best names? And you were there 3 years, so the turnover is not absurd in baseball all the time. But like, who are some of the best guys you thought you caught for as a bullpen catcher, or even some guys you thought had like starter level stuff who are just in the bullpen, maybe if there were any?
I mean, the very first, I mean, it was the second year, but Robbie Ray, when he won the Cy Young, when he
Yeah,
was with us, that was one of the most impressive things. He's always had the stuff. I faced him in AAA. I used to joke with him all the time because I hit a home run off him and I kept bringing it up to him. But that was when he was going through, battle. He got called up and then he went back down. But his stuff was electric. And, Pete Walker with the pitching coach there did such a good job of just, your stuff is so good. Let's just make sure we're not going 4 or 5 innings. Let's try to like fill up the zone, throw strikes, because even if you miss in a certain part of the zone, you have such electric stuff. You're not gonna get hard contact. So that minimized. That's why he had so much success. Yeah, yes, he still gave up a couple home runs, stuff like that, but instead of being 2, 3 run home runs, they're just solo home runs because he's not walking as many guys. So learning that, watching that unfold, being a part of it was pretty impressive. And there's other guys out there, but like I think more for me, like learning and catching a Cy Young, catching all his bullpens, playing catch with him on a daily basis. That was a fun year.
were there when you were playing? Were there any trade rumors that you thought like, oh, I'm gone, and then you just don't leave?
No, not for me. I was more of a scrub, so involved in all that. I was part of like, I had guys on the team that like there was rumors around, but I came up with the Tampa Bay Rays, so we weren't always the team that was going out trying to buy.
Yeah.
You know, they were a team that built within. So and made some small adjustments in the offseason. So it wasn't, I was only traded one time, and that was when I got traded to the Rangers. And that even that moment was kind of awkward for me because I remember being in the dugout. Wally Backman was my manager, and he called me in. And he's like, "Hey," he sat down at his desk, and this is in the middle of a game. He sat down at his desk, like, "Hey, we just traded you." I'm like, "Get out of here!" Like, no. I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Traded you to the Rangers." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Yeah, they want, insurance policy." I was like, "Okay." And we sat in the in his office during the game and just chit chatted. We had a great relationship for 5 innings while the game was still going on. Because looking back at it, he respected me enough to have that conversation, and I definitely respected him and his career. Where I was going to use that moment to soak up as much knowledge as I could.
So that was the year, I guess. So were you brought in as an insurance policy for the actual big league club, or were they just making it?
Well, I mean, they were in that playoff run, so they just brought up their third catcher.
Yeah.
And then so when they're in the playoff run, and if they make the playoffs, if one of those catchers got hurt, then I was there to finish out the AAA season, but then also kind of be on reserve if something were to
So you were
happen.
the
And
fourth in the system.
basically like the fourth in the system,
Yeah. Well, because that was the year we had Hamels and you, I think, was 16.
Yeah.
Th- th-
No, I don't remember. I didn't pay enough attention. Like I said, I was only there for a week, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna go home now. So
Yeah. Nice seeing you guys. Did you like your stay in Texas? Your week stay?
yeah, it was fun. I mean, I knew most of the guys. I got to play with Gallo and and
Oh.
a couple of other guys. So it was pretty good.
No, Gallo, and he gets criticized for being a power hitter, which is just because power hitters get criticized. But he's so fun as a Ranger fan. To
Yeah, I
have
mean, it's those guys can hit, like, they could hit for contact if they're so gifted, but why? Like, when the front office and what they're looking for is for you to drive the ball and hit home runs and have RBIs. There's no reason to minimize that. You're gonna go out there and you're gonna take your best hacks, and if you get struck, if you strike out, you strike out. And that's the part of the game that you know a lot of people don't get to see. Seeing it through, being able to experience it and looking through like that lens, it's tough because they're this is their livelihood. They're trying to make as much money as possible in a short amount of time because you know especially the talent level that's out there now. It's so large. Like, even college now, the talent pool is astronomical, and you're competing against so many different people that there's not enough teams and not enough places. So you're all in effort, and you gotta do it when you can.
Speaking of which, I'm sure expansions on the mind up there always at some point. But
Yeah, it's I think I think there's enough talent. It's more of like how they're gonna, they have issues within MLB right now in certain places of stadiums, and really good teams. Look at the Tampa Bay Rays. They're in the running of the American League East, one of the best divisions every year, and yet they still struggle to fill up their stadiums. So like, I think they need to iron out places like that before expanding. But there's plenty enough talent to add one or two teams. So
the and I'm sure they just filled up one of the markets that would have took one.
yeah,
Because that's what Oakland became, but it'd probably be Indian, add other
it
place.
would be. I mean, I would love to, see Nashville and Indy or something like that. But you think about the market around here. You got diehard Cardinals fans,
Yeah,
diehard
it'd be hard.
fans, and Braves. Like, you throw one in the mix, it'd be really tough to pull. But at the same time, the Predators did it, the Titans did it, and they were able to do it. So, it might take some time, but before all COVID hit, I would have thought Montreal would have been probably one of the best places. But
Yeah,
with the whole debacle that was in Canada, like, there's no reason to go over the border, because if something were like that to happen again, it's such a nightmare, and for not only the organizations but for families, for players. It's a different thing that people don't get to see. And I unfortunately went through that process as a coach, and it's not fun.
yeah, and I don't. Baseball's in a weird spot. I think it's actually being helped right now by the new generation. The new Tatis is essentially what I'm referring to. That type of player, because it's making it a little bit more social media viable than maybe it was previously.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's, you're seeing it even in, look at Max Clark. Look at the, like, he was a third overall pick, and guy from Indiana, which he's an unbelievable athlete. But like, he had a brand. He made a brand out of his name, and and he used social media to his advantage. And players are doing that. Players are realizing, and it's part of the game now, where their name, their likelihood is a brand, and you see it with college and NIL deals and stuff like that. So I don't I don't fault them for that. You could play for 2 years and you can get the game taken away with an injury. So they spend so much time, money, and energy and sweat and tears to get to that level. You want to maximize the amount of money that you can bring in and provide for your family. And I don't blame them for that. It's if it doesn't go to them or to the athletes, it's going to go into the pockets of the owners. And so and they make plenty of amount of plenty of money. So it just it's a where does it stop as a society? Where does it stop? Like ticket sales, beer costs. I don't know. It's going to be to the point where people stop going and watching games. But I think what they're doing now and making more action, it's fun to watch it. But at the same time, like I played it long enough, like I don't sit down and watch it on TV. I'd rather go out and watch my son's team or any of our kids in our organization that we started. Like I'd rather go and watch them and help the youth out.
I was about to say, I imagine you get, especially baseball. I imagine you could get a little deaf to it, not wanting to watch it anymore. Uh,
I mean, once it gets, time, if I'm not working at the academy or we don't have a tournament going on, I'll watch it. But at the same time, my wife lived it, breathed it, was there throughout the whole time, and that's the last thing she wants to watch on TV. But I got help from my boys now that they like it enough that they want to watch it. So I use that as an excuse.
so you're in the Rays system. Was Josh Hamilton technically in the Rays system when you were?
Yeah. So my first year there, I went to instructional league after my rookie year, and I remember getting on a bike just to get loose for the day. And there's this massive human being next to me, and he was rehabbing his knee, and he just got off his suspension, and he was starting back that year, and that's when he ended up getting Rule 5 drafted by the Reds. So it was I got to talk to him, and he was like, he's guy that's just tatted up, and I'm like sitting there like, man, this guy's huge, and just
He would
down to
get
earth.
bigger.
So just had some demons in him, and unfortunately, it cost him some pivotal years, but he was still probably one of the most impressive athletes, baseball players that ever played the game.
Yeah, and I know the Rays sometimes catch flack for drafting him, but he was by the time he made it to the majors, he proved why he was first round pretty
Yeah,
quick.
he's a guy that you look back and I mean, we're seeing the best player of all time play the game right now in
Shohei.
show.
Yeah.
And like he's the type of player that could have been up with those names just because how talented he was. He could have done anything. Yet he, unfortunately treated his body in that way, and his body was giving out because of it. So we got to see some really really good years, but at the same time, like there was more in there.
This guy wasn't that good, but shout out Mo Vaughn for being awesome till his bicep decided to become bad.
Yeah, that was a big dude.
And Prince. Shout out Prince too, because Prince is a really big dude and athletic, big and athletic dude. Prince was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
injuries.
first basemen are going to disappear. That'll be the next thing. Those big first basemen are probably going to disappear at some point. It's going to be really sad.
I mean, honestly, I think catching is going to be one of the positions, especially with PitchCom and all the analytics, how games called. Like you go to robot umpires, you're not gonna need the technique of stealing pitches and all that. It's going to be someone you're going to need a hitter, and you're going to need someone that can throw people out.
So this is one of my last questions. Pitch clock.
Yeah.
How would you have dealt with the pitch clock?
I think umpires need more leeway with it. There's some moments in a game that you do not want to rush the pitcher or the hitter. So there needs to be some some feel, some savviness, and then unfortunately, within Major League Baseball, within all like the people making those decisions, they're people that it's analytically driven. It's all business related. It's not people that have played the game and been a part of the game, and it's solely geared towards the entertainment aspect for the game. I do think games are too long. They are boring, but you go to a game, you go to the game for like you expect to be there for 4 or 5 hours. If not, you're standing outside waiting for events or your autographs or something like that. So it's not one of those things that you go there to experience for 2.5 hours and then go home. That it's solely off of TV ratings and contracts so that they can add in, get more programs and get more money out of it for TV.
So that's all I got content wise. Is there anything you want to? Where can people find Ashley Academy to get your services?
I mean, we ashleyacademy.info is our website. We're on Instagram, Ashley Academy 5, Facebook as well. We just started a travel ball organization, baseball organization here in Evansville this past year called Top Tier Athletics. We started that basically trying to keep really good athletes here. I remember a lot of really good players, by the time they get to 13, 14, 15 years old, they have to go to Indy or Louisville and to play. And, we wanted it to be easier for parents that they can stay locally. We have a lot of talent coming from Southern Indiana and Kentucky and Illinois. And so we started, we're having some success, and we're building off of it. And it plays hand in hand with Ashley Academy. We're all about development and given the opportunity to this area's youth so that they can play further on, whether it be college, whether it be a really good high school player, whatever it may be.
So this episode's been. So I'm Hunter Wade at the Athletes Lounge podcast, and that's been this episode. Thanks.
Thanks, Hunter.
Hey guys, this is Hunter Wade at the Athletes Lounge podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe where you can. Thanks.